Lloyd Robertson, Harvey Kirk, with the CTV National News.
Good evening. Some of the worst violence to date has hit Northern Ireland, and there may be more to come. Lloyd?
Lloyd Robertson, Harvey Kirk, with the CTV National News.
Good evening. The federal government has introduced new Medicare legislation.
The CTV National News with Richard Brown.
Good evening. A huge cloud of poisonous gas hangs over a small town in Sweden tonight.
The CTV National News with Lloyd Robertson.
Good evening. Canada's suspected spy appeared in court today after hours of conversation with investigators.
In tonight's news, the leaders of the two communist superpowers meet in China as students there step up their calls for reform. In Panama, the military offers to share political power, but the opposition responds with a defiant no. And in Prince Edward Island, thousands protest the closing of CFB Summerside.
The CTV National News with Pamela Wallen.
Good evening. Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev has arrived in China for the first time.
In tonight's news, resolution to fight. Canada wants UN approval for the use of force in the Persian Gulf. Reclaiming their spirituality. Back to the old ways, healing old wounds as we focus on West Coast natives. And play ball.
To me, the ball club is a part of what makes us as a city.
Quebec and Montreal put up millions to stay in the big leagues.
CTV News with Lloyd Robertson.
Good evening. The United States formally briefed Canada about the situation in the Persian Gulf today.
Attack on Mideast peace inside Israel. Space surgery, picture perfect so far. And a profile encouraged.
CTV News with Peter Murphy.
Good evening. Another violent attack is jeopardizing peace in the Middle East.
Tonight, trying to save the separatists, Lucien Bouchard is back. Grounded for adultery, a pilot offers to resign. And mighty mice, is this the future of agriculture?
CTV News with Lloyd Robertson.
Good evening. The Bloc Québécois launched a desperate rescue effort tonight to revive its faltering campaign.
Tonight, Winnipeg's arson zone. Is a firebug on the prowl? Home again. Pete Rose comes back to baseball. And taxi, taxi, taxi.
1,618,000 miles.
A Montreal cabbie steers for a record.
CTV News with Sandy Rinaldo.
Good evening. It has been dubbed Canada's arson capital, and this weekend showed why.
Tonight, final face-off. Kerry versus Bush in a last-ditch grab at breaking a deadlock.
Being lectured by the president on fiscal responsibility is a little bit like Tony Soprano talking to me about law and order.
You know, there's a mainstream in American politics, and you sit right on the far left bank.
A final debate to decide a leader or a loser in the race for the White House. Tearful farewell.
That he lay down his life for his friends.
A sea of family and friends remembers.
He leaves an outstanding legacy which will carry on in all the lives that he knew.
Sounding the alarm.
When it is too noisy, we have a headache and they have a headache too.
How your children's toys may cause permanent hearing damage. And learning life's lessons through the wind. A Sandy Ronaldo CTV success story.
CTV News with Lloyd Robertson.
Good evening. It was billed as a crucial showdown in the race for the White House. Tonight, politics and the preacher. He was the man who pulled strings in Washington. Reverend Jerry Falwell's legacy of controversy.
That the pagans and the abortionists and the feminists and the gays and the lesbians.
And how he fueled the rise of the religious right. At the breaking point.
There's only two ways of dealing with the white man. One, you either pick up a gun or you stand in the way of him getting to his money.
Canadian natives warn of a summer of conflict. Overworked and under the gun.
My job is not Monday to Friday, 9 to 5.
Why so many of us are spending so much time at work. And a deli with attitude.
If somebody comes in and they are allergic to mustard and they just had dental surgery, they're in big trouble.
The secret to Walensky's 75 years of success? It isn't variety.
We make them with mustard only.
CTV News with Lloyd Robertson.
Good evening. His calling was that of a minister, but he became one of the most controversial American political figures of the last 50 years. Tonight, free at last, a nightmare ordeal ends for a Canadian journalist. Let go after 15 months as a hostage in Somalia.
There was times that I was beaten, that I was tortured.
Just how did Amanda Lindhout finally find freedom?
The government is delighted.
Tearing apart the testimony.
How ludicrous a statement is that?
Canada's former top soldier slams allegations of detainee torture.
Absolutely false.
And the leap and the letdown.
He had a malfunction.
A soggy outcome for the man who once soared solo across the English Channel.
CTV National News with Lloyd Robertson.
Good evening.
Tonight, the Labor Day blues, a market swan dive overseas and soaring employment turmoil here at home. A show of solidarity.
There's a whole union-busting attitude in the country right now.
After a summer of discontent.
Let's put America back to work.
Will the demand for more jobs cost him his own? What's going on with the weather?
I'm petrified because the fire was in my yard.
From deadly wildfires to unrelenting rain, a powerful storm system takes a bizarre twist.
Oh my God.
And Classroom Confidential.
August, it just flies by.
A survivor's guide for parents coping with the stress of September.
CTV National News with Lisa Leflam.
Good evening. It's the unofficial end of summer and a time of new beginnings right here at CTV News.
Tonight, hackers force a pandemic lifeline offline. Thousands are compromised by cyber attacks on the Canada Revenue Agency. Emergency COVID funds disrupted. Sensitive information stolen.
Social insurance number, all of our tax information, bank accounts.
How you can protect yourself.
If we all take these steps, and then these types of breaches are preventable.
America's Democrats on the eve of an unconventional convention.
It's certainly going to be a different feel with everyone participating virtually from home.
While Donald Trump launches a counterattack. Plus, another kind of parliamentary royal assent.
It's only one queen.
The bees making honey on the Hill.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
Good evening. We begin tonight with a new COVID crisis for the Trudeau government and for thousands of Canadians who rely on emergency benefits.